The day after the crash, the images are even more horrifying, even more heartbreaking. It was a regular flight to England from Delhi to Ahmedabad and Ahmedabad to the Gatwick Airport in London. A Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner. It shattered more than 200 dreams, 260 people. 241 on board, there's one survivor, and several on ground lost their lives. It's left a trail of devastation, not just in the skies, but also on ground. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Ahmedabad earlier today. He visited the crash site. He was accompanied by Gujarat Chief Minister and officials both of the administration in Gujarat and civil aviation. He was briefed in detail about the air crash. He also visited the civil hospital in Ahmedabad, where he met the injured families. He interacted with some of the victims, the lone survivor of the air crash, and students on ground who were injured, medical college students. Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacted with the sole survivor of the air crash, Vishwas Kumar. The Prime Minister then held a very crucial meeting with top ministers and officials at the airport. He took stock of the situation. A formal investigation has now been ordered into the crash. So what's happening right now? All the data, the material evidence, that's being collected. The black box, search for the black box, that started. There are some reports. So there are two flight data recorders and the cockpit voice recorders. There are reports to indicate that something has been recovered. There's effort to find all the material. A high-level expert committee has also been formed to figure out steps to strengthen aviation safety in India. In a chilling sequence, the plane's wheels, the undercarriage, it retracted briefly before the pilot pushed them back down, perhaps sensing a sudden loss of thrust seconds after the takeoff. That's what experts, and watch those images that we're showing you on your television screen. The hostel where the plane crashed now, sadly, looks like a burnt-out graveyard. Half-eaten meals, broken tables and chairs, walls that caved in once the aircraft fell onto those two buildings. One was a mess, the other was a junior resident doctor's hostel. Union Home Minister Amit Shah also visited the crash site, took stock of the situation yesterday.
देखने की टीमें हमारी यहाँ पर हैं, स्टैंड बाय हैं, वो लोग अपना काम कर रही हैं। आप लोगों को देखिए, हमारी 6 टीमें ऑलरेडी यहाँ पर हैं, वो लोग कल से काम कर रही हैं, सभी लोग मिलके काम कर रहे हैं। आप लोगों को जो भी होगा हम लोग बताएंगे, ठीक है? वेट फॉर सम टाइम।
कितने सब अभी अंदर बल्बे में फंसे हो सकते हैं सर?
देखिए, इसका अभी हम लोग कुछ फाइनल नहीं बोल सकते, क्योंकि जब तक फाइनल पूरा की पूरा क्लियर नहीं कर लेंगे तब तक नहीं बता पाएंगे।
India Today's Amit Bharadwaj is on ground zero. He joins me with more on this. And Amit, I know all of our reporters have been reporting on the anguish. And of course, there is deep pain. There is some anger, both amongst the next of kin of passengers and students. What more can you tell us about initial investigations and work that's on currently?
Gaurav, yesterday the entire focus was on the relief work, as well as ensuring that whatever fatalities have happened, that needs to be recovered from the crash site, because even the authorities knew from the very moment they took on that operation that there is hardly any hope for lives to be saved from here, and that was reason being precisely that 1.25 lakh litre of fuel, extensively inflammable fuel of aircraft was in the aircraft when that crash happened. And that is why, as you also mentioned, it looks like a graveyard. Everything has been charred down around that campus of the medical college hostel. So yesterday the focus was to ensure that if there are people alive, they need to be taken to the hospital. The medical facility has to be provided to them. And the fatalities, whatever has happened in the debris, in the wreckage out there, that has to be retrieved as well. And till midnight, that phase of rescue and relief was going on. Today, my sources within the AAIB told that, now the process of collecting the material evidence from the site has begun, which means that whether it be the black box or the cockpit voice recorder, all that is being searched by the nodal investigative agency. In this particular case, Aircraft Accident Investigations Bureau, AAIB, is carrying out that investigation, and they have told us that they have begun looking for the material evidence from today itself, which means that as the day progresses, we could actually hear a confirmation as to whether the black box has been retrieved by the agency or not, number one. Number two, there was certainly some kind of movement, Gaurav, in the hostel's rooftop where that first collision had happened, because we could see that a big part of the Air India 171 which was kept on the rooftop was certainly taken, lifted upwards during the noon. And the agency's officials were working on that particular rooftop, because remember, this was the very area which was under so much of heat yesterday that the workers who were for their relief and rescue work, they had to face a lot of challenge. But today, that particular big red wreckage of the Air India craft Dreamliner was lifted upwards, and the agency officials were working on that particular rooftop. So whether they were looking for
the
further
Boeing
material
team
evidence,
arrives in India is the big question, because the Boeing team will also join investigations. India, of course, has its own systems in place for the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder to be deciphered. It doesn't just have to be sent to the United States of America, to Boeing headquarters, but this devastating tragedy in Ahmedabad. More than 260 people have been dead. Some accounts indicate that the death toll actually is 265. How did it happen? More importantly, what caused this crash? Authorities will be piecing together the final moments of AI 171 through the cockpit voice recorder, the flight data recorder. That will help restructure and, in a way, get to know what happened to that aircraft, the flight path. Also, the attempt will be to recreate that scenario. So the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder, all those parameters are then fed to a computer, and automatically it generates all the data to then recreate that scene to know what happened, what went wrong. Analysis of the wreckage will also be done to determine the sequence of events. The images will also provide a lot of crucial information. Aviation consultant John Cox says investigators will look into whether the aircraft was properly configured for takeoff, specifically if the flaps and slats were correctly deployed. That's a question that's been raised by several aviation experts since yesterday. A thorough review of the aircraft's maintenance logs will also be conducted to check whether anything was overlooked. And it's not just maintenance by Boeing, but by the operators of the carrier, which is Air India. You have engineers on ground. They do an analysis and a check before the aircraft takes over. Then the pilot goes around the aircraft, checks everything on ground. Then he enters the cockpit. Then you have the pilot and the co-pilot. They do a check, recheck, and it's verbal. So every bit of that information is recorded in the cockpit voice recorder when there's check and recheck by the pilot and the co-pilot. Then you have the air crew that checks systems on board, all of that. But let's listen in to John M. Cox on what perhaps needs to be done and will be done now.
From the images, we can get an idea of some of the things that the investigators are going to look at. One of which is, was the airplane properly configured for flight? Were the slats and flaps in the proper location? That is something that's on the flight data recorder, so we'll know immediately. Now, the airplane does have a warning system that will advise the pilots with a horn as well as a message on a computer screen if the airplane's not properly configured for takeoff. At this point, it's very, very, very early. We don't know a whole lot, but the 787 has very extensive flight data monitoring. The parameters on the flight data recorder are in the thousands. So once we get that recorder, they'll be able to know pretty quickly what happened.